morning, everyone, and welcome to the Cal-IP application workshop. Thank you for attending. My name is Ryan Danowitz. I'm an analyst with the Cal-IP program, and I will be your presenter today. The purpose of this workshop is to give you some information about the eligibility requirements for a successful Cal-IP grant application. Also, we're going to go into detail about the answers we are looking for during the questions on the Cal-IP application. And we're going to spend some time answering your questions towards the end of this. So the workshop is broken down into 4 parts. The first part, we're just going to go over some guidelines and considerations for helping this workshop run a little more smoothly. Second section, we are going to look at eligibility, so the eligibility requirements for the grant, as well as eligible uses of Cal-IP grant funds. The third part, we're going to do the deep dive into the application itself and go over the questions in detail, give you a better understanding of what we are looking for with the answers. And the last part, we're going to look at the next steps for once this workshop application is finished, answer questions, and give you some resources you can use to help you fill out that Cal-IP application. So the first part, housekeeping, just some basic ground rules, considerations for this workshop. Please save all questions until the Q&A portion at the end of the presentation. And with that in mind, please mute yourselves until called upon to speak. That should help streamline everything. And then when it is time for comments, we will use the raise hand feature to identify the teams. On the slide, please look at the graphic, and highlighted in red is the location of the raise hand feature across various devices. So, eligibility. Briefly, a quick overview of the Cal-IP program. The legislature designed Cal-IP to provide grants to enhance the capacity and ability of CDFIs to provide programs, including technical assistance and access to capital to economically disadvantaged communities throughout California. In a nutshell, the Cal-IP program serves those who serve California's underserved communities. So, pretty cool, if you ask me. Is my CDFI eligible to apply for a Cal-IP grant? So there are some minimum requirements to have a successful Cal-IP grant application. The first requirement is that your CDFI has current federal CDFI fund certification. Also, your CDFI needs to already be serving California in at least one of 3 ways. Either your principal office is based in and your officers live in California, or 25% of your loan portfolio provides financial assistance to persons or projects in California, or your CDFI needs to have provided financial assistance in California totaling equal to or greater than $10 million in the 3 years prior to grant application. Another requirement is that your CDFI needs to have made 5 or more loans in the 12 months prior to application. And the final requirement is that your CDFI currently has a net worth equal to or greater than $25,000. And for eligible uses of Cal-IP grant funds, as you can see on the slide, a lot of different areas where you can spend your Cal-IP grant funds should you be awarded them. A couple I'd like to highlight. For example, you can use Cal-IP grant fund to attract additional financing, whether that's simply increasing your net worth to attract other investors, or you can use it, part of it, on an application for other funding projects, programs, things like that. You can also use Cal-IP funds for working capital in a broad number of ways. For example, you can use it to hire new employees. You can use Cal-IP funds to upgrade your equipment, to renovate your space. you can use it to move into a new space. So there are a lot of different ways in which you could apply those funds to help you serve your CDFI and its mission. Some instructions for filling out and submitting your CalIP application. First of all, the application can be found at the web address listed there at the top. Please answer all questions on the application and mark NA if not applicable. Just so you know what we're thinking, a blank space on your application says to us that we need to reach out to your organization to ask for clarification as to whether or not you missed the question or that doesn't apply to you. So if something doesn't apply to you, please mark it NA. Do not leave it blank. Another thing to remember is application materials must be submitted electronically via email to calip@treasurer.ca.gov. Please only send your application materials to that address. Finally, applicants must submit all application materials no later than 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on October 1st, 2024. Late submittals will not be accepted. Once again, please submit all application materials no later than 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on October 1st, 2024. All right, so looking at the application itself. Part 1 is going to be a lot of questions about applicant information, everything listed on the slide right there. Just to highlight a few of these, for principal office address, not only put the street address, but please put the city, state, and zip code where that principal office is located. For type of institution, there are 7 choices for that. Please select one choice that best describes your CDFI. For authorized representatives information, an authorized representative is anybody from your organization that has the authority to legally obligate your organization into a legally binding agreement with CalIP, CPCFA, and the State Treasurer's Office. There are 6 spaces available for that. You do not need to fully fill out those 6 spaces, but please write down any authorized representative's name, job title, contact information, and whether or not they are domiciled in California. New to our 2024-2025 application, we're also going to ask you to list the California counties that your CDFI serves. Anywhere you do business, whether that's make a loan in a county or fund a project in a county, provide a service in a county, please list all of those counties. If your CDFI serves every single county in California, you can save yourself some time and simply write all 58 served. But if you do not, please list every single county that you do business in. And then also we are asking for the name of the individual who will sign the grant agreement. This has to be one of your authorized representatives listed in Part 1. The reason we are asking for this is to streamline the grant agreement signing process that got a little muddled last year. So this time in advance, we are asking you to think about which individual from your organization will be signing that grant agreement, and please provide all their information in that section. Also new to Part 1 of the 2024-2025 application for previous awardees from last year. Please remember that 50% of the funds you receive must be expended 12 months after receiving that 2024 award. So we're going to ask for the year you received that award. We're also going to ask you for the dollar amount of funds you received back in February 2024. We're also going to ask you for the dollar amount of funds expended as of the application date. Doesn't have to be 50% by the time you apply, but we are going to verify this information later on before handing over any 2025 awards if you were a previous awardee. All right, Part 2 is the grant request. This is where your CDFI is going to select which award you are applying for. There are 3 tiers and 4 options total. The first one, small and emerging. To be eligible for small and emerging, your CDFI needs to meet the minimum requirements we talked about a little bit ago, and also have less than $10 million in total assets. For tier 1, your CDFI once again has to meet the minimum requirements and have more than $10 million in assets. For tier 2, there's option 2A or option 2B. For both of those, your CDFI needs to meet the minimum requirements. And for 2A, your CDFI needs to have a minimum of 10 loans in the most recently completed fiscal year. For 2B, your CDFI needs to have provided $10 million in financing assistance in California in the last 3 fiscal years. And that $10 million for 2B, that is a cumulative total. So of at least $10 million. And one thing to keep in mind with part 2, you can only be given an award for a single option. You can't double up or triple up. So when you are selecting which tier you're applying for, make sure you do your research and pick the one that's going to help you the most. All right, part 3, this is going to be the longer answer part of the application. So in question 1, we are asking you to provide a summary of your CDFI's mission, organization, infrastructure, and plans. So basically, what is your CDFI's mission? Why did you choose that particular mission? How is your CDFI organized? What infrastructure do you have in place to help you with your daily operations? And what plans do you have for the future? Question 2, we're going to ask you to describe how CalIP funds will support your CDFI's mission. And what we're looking for here is more big picture. If you are awarded CalIP funds, how does that help your CDFI's overall mission? Question 3, describe how CalIP funds will be used. Sounds similar to question 2, but in this one, the answer we're looking for is more the specifics of how you would spend those CalIP grant funds. Are you going to use it to fund an existing program you have? Are you going to use it to hire a new employee? Are you going to use it to move into a different office space? Please let us know the details of how you would spend those CalIP funds if you are awarded them. For question 4, we're going to ask you to list the current markets your CDFI serves. What we mean by current markets are small businesses, housing, underbanked, childcare, education, community development, nonprofit lending, etc. Basically, what are the focus areas of your CDFI? For question 5, we're going to ask you to list the targeted regions and client types your CDFI serves. By targeted regions, that's a question of geography. So we're going to ask you to list off the neighborhoods, the cities, the counties that your CDFI serves. And by client types, we're looking for the people that your CDFI serves. So, for example, low-income households, small business owners, community developers, BIPOC individuals, seniors, agricultural workers, the list goes on. So please let us know the region and the people that your CDFI is serving. Question 6, list any potential new target markets and or client types that will be served by CalIP funds. We learned about what we're looking for with target markets with the description of question 4, and client types, just heard about that with question 5. So if your CDFI is planning on branching out into new markets or reaching out to new client types, please list them for question 6. And if you aren't planning on doing that, this would be a perfect opportunity to use NA for that question field. For question 7, list any proposed new services and or financial activities that will be aided by CalIP funds. Excuse me. So once again, If you're planning on starting a new service or a new type of financial activity with the use of CalIP funds, please let us know about it. And if you're not using them for a new service or activity, you can once again place NA in that answer field. For question 8, we are asking for a summary of the level of distress of the impacted community or new market that is being served. So first of all, we want to know how you quantify that level of distress. And you can use indicators such as geography, unemployment rate, poverty rate, impacted industries, the number of business licenses issued, or fiscal stress. List goes on. So please let us know how you determine that a community or new market has a level of distress, and then please describe that level of distress. And we understand that sometimes the answers might run a little long. We've hopefully provided enough space for you on the application. But if you want to add more, you can submit an addendum for the questions in part 3, so long as that addendum adheres to the following. Please use only 12-point Arial font. Please keep your addendum responses to a maximum of 250 words per question. Please do not include any charts, graphs, or other graphics. So you can send us an addendum, just make sure it follows these rules. All right, part 4 of the application are the attachments that you will use to verify the information related to the minimum requirements. So attachment A is a current federal certification. We understand that the feds don't give out actual certificates to show you are certified, but any sort of document showing the renewal of your federal certification or something like that would be greatly appreciated. For attachment B, we would like financial statements for your CDFI's past 3 fiscal years. So something, again, verifying your financial status over the past 3 fiscal years. And attachment C, we want a loan portfolio that shows all of the following: the date of loan funding, the dollar amount of loans funded, the location of the borrower, and the total number of all loans. So please make sure your loan portfolio shows all 4 of these things. All right, part 5, certification. This is the signature page. So any authorized representative from your organization can sign the application. Just make sure that that authorized representative is one of the people listed in the section back in part 1. And be aware that all materials submitted with the application will become property of the state of California, not be returned, be considered a public record by CPCFA and the state treasurer's office, and be subject to disclosure pursuant to the California Public Records Act. So please be aware of that. All right, the last section. So some next steps to keep in mind after today's workshop. Once again, the deadline for submitting all application materials is 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on October 1st, 2024. After that, myself and the rest of the CalIP team will be poring over all the applications. And then in January of 2025, we will be bringing our award recommendations before the CPCFA board. We will be sending out an email notifying every applicant about the exact day and time of that board meeting. So stay tuned for that. Then on February 3rd, 2025, we will announce the awards on the CalIP webpage. And once we have done that in February, we're going to start distributing the grant agreements via DocuSign. So keep tuned for that. All right, now we are to the questions section of this. Once again, please remember, mute yourselves until called upon to speak. We will use the raise hand feature to identify those who wish to speak, again, highlighted in red on those graphics on the screen. And also, please be aware that you can write your questions into the chat. but we will be answering the questions of those using the raise hand feature first. And once all of those are done, we will move on to the questions in the chat. And then finally, some resources for everybody. The notice of funding availability, the application, and the application instructions are available on the CalIP webpage at that address, or you can use that QR code in the bottom right, and it'll send you to the same page. Final reminder, your application submission deadline is 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on October 1st, 2024. And if you have any questions after today's workshop, please contact us at calip@treasurer.ca.gov. All right, so with that said, let us open up the floor to questions. Paula Bahaman. I'm sorry, could you unmute yourself? I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Could you say that again? All right, sorry, technical difficulties there. I see we have Taylor Cannon with their hand raised.
Yes, that's correct. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Excellent. So for the requirement of spending down 50% of the award, we received a 2-year award, and the first year allotment was 100,000. So that's 50% of the 100,000 for the first allotment, not 50% of the entire award amount over 2 years. Is that correct?
Hi, Taylor. This is Andrea Gonzalez. I just want to introduce myself to everyone. I'm the CalIP manager, and I'm going to be helping Ryan with answering some of the questions. So, yes, if you received $100,000 in 2024, you'd identify that you received 100,000, and the eligibility requirement for receiving your second award would be that 50% of that 100,000 has been spent within the first year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrea. That is good news.
No problem. And I just want to reiterate, and Ryan went over this again. You identified in the application, we're asking, that you list how much you've expended. And we're going to be flagging, if you haven't yet, we'll be confirming before awards go out for the following year. So don't worry if you haven't spent that money by October 1st.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for the clarification.
No problem.
All right, and then we have Ornea Kelly. Please unmute yourself if you haven't done so already, Ornea.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Question regarding the CDFI certification. If
Yes.
a organization has CDFI certification, but the last documentation has the date on it, like 2018, 2019, and now that we're in this period where the CDFI has stated that everybody is now still certified up until 2025, I guess I'm asking if you're looking for a particular date that you need to see on this correspondence.
So that is a good question. Last year, what we did is that a lot of organizations turned in the way that you show that you have your continued certification is that if you're reporting to the CDFI fund with when you do their annual report and they send you an email or some type of letter saying we've received your yearly reporting and you continue to be certified. So we'll verify through those ways. And then the CDFI fund also post their current CDFIs. So we'll also look through there. But if you could just submit anything that says you are still certified, you are doing the reporting that you're doing, that's sufficient for us.
Thank you. And I have one more question.
Oh, of
Where
course.
you were requesting information about the loan data, is it that you need all the loans made by the organization or just an aggregate? I wasn't sure.
So it depends on the requirement. So if you look at the eligibility requirements, you have to have 5 loans in the last year. So in your loan portfolio, we'll be verifying, you have made at least 5 loans within the 12 months prior to applying. And if you're that goes as well in the different eligibility requirements for the different tiers. Like one of them is that for tier 2, you'd have to make 10 loans. So we'll look through your loan portfolio to make sure that the date of the loans, the location of the borrowers in California, and the amounts. And we'll be verifying that through your whatever you submit for your loan portfolio.
Okay, just to clarify, if I made 30 loans in the last fiscal year and I'm applying for one of the tier that requires 10 loans, I could only I can send you possibly just 10 loans, not the whole 30.
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
fine. But we'd love to see that you exceeded that, because there's also an amount too that you could be eligible for. So we'll look
Okay.
at the total amount of
Thank
the
you.
loan amount. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Asha Rao, you have a question?
Yeah, can you clarify or point us to where you can see maximum award amounts per tier that the organizations are eligible for?
Yeah, so those are going to be in the health and safety code.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, yeah.
We have it on our webpage, on the CalIP webpage, the requirements as well, but they're listed in the application. There are the sections in the statute and in the regs. Are you looking for like the eligibility numbers or like the award numbers?
The maximum award amounts.
Oh, the maximum award amounts are in our regulations on our webpage, but I can go over them with you. For small and emerging, if you're applying to be in that category, 25% or 20% of the total $15 million that's available will be divided equally among those who are small and emerging, which is having 100 million, 10 million assets, sorry, or less. For tier 1, the maximum is that you could receive is 100,000, and then for tier 2A or B, the minimum is 100,000 and the maximum is 200,000.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
So we'll begin now since there's no raised hands in the chat. We had our first question from Jen Vern. She's asking, would you like the annual report from last year's award submitted before the October 1st deadline or just by the deadline, the October 1st application deadline or the annual reporting deadline? So that's a good question. If you have received a previous award, your annual report is due on the date that the annual report is due. You don't have to submit it earlier if your due date is later than October 1st. That's why we just have that portion in part 1 of the application asking, how much you've expended, and we'll verify that later on before awards are expended in 2025. So you don't have to turn in your annual report early. Next question is, please repeat the 4 elements of the loan portfolio. That is under this slide that's on the screen. The loan portfolio must show date of loan funding, the dollar amount of loans funded, the location of the borrower, and the total number of all loans. Okay. Moving on, how much money am I applying for this year? How much is the grant for in 2025? So I think this is probably specific to the organization, but you are applying for the different tiers, and we went over the minimums and the maximums. So I can give you an example. you look through the eligibility requirements for each tier, and then you pick what your organization is eligible for. So you go through and you see, am I small and emerging? Small and emerging means you meet the minimum requirements of the program, and then you have $10 million or less in total assets. So you'd be eligible for that. On the award end, like I said previously, 20% of the $15 million that's available for this year will be set aside and then divided evenly amongst all eligible applicants who turned in an application on time. So for example, last year we had 6 small and emerging applicants. We divided 20% of the 15 available and each received $600,000. For tier 1, very similar. It's divided amongst all tier 1 applicants. We only received 1 applicant, I believed, under tier 1, and they received the maximum, which is 100,000. And then for tier 2A or B, you are only eligible for either one. Even if you meet the minimum requirements for both, you're only still receiving 1 tier 2 award, and then the minimum is 100,000 that you could receive, and the maximum is 200,000. And the difference is just it's going to be the defining amount would be dividing the remaining awards that's left and dividing among all the eligible tier 2 applicants. So last year, everyone was eligible for 200 and received $200,000, which is the maximum. So I hope that helps. It's a little tricky. So next question from Victoria. If we receive a 2-year grant last year and already depleted the funds, are we eligible again this year? So yes, you are eligible because you've expended at least 50% of the previous award. Next is Abby Gray in the chat. She says, good morning. Thank you for hosting this webinar. For fiscal year 24 recipients, can we apply under the same project structure for fiscal year 25, or does it need to be a new project? It does not. It could help serve your previous goals, and then you would just identify that in the application. Next is from Jessica Diaz. Can you send a copy of the recorded program, please? Yes, we'll be emailing all attendees a copy of the PowerPoint, and then we'll be posting a recording on our webpage, and we'll let you guys know through email when that's being posted. And it'll be posted on our webpage. The next question, Kat Donovan. If we are awarded in 2025, will we have to report that award in June 2025? Additionally, if we already used our 2024 award, will we still have to report on 2024 in June 2025? So the way that the annual reporting works is that everyone has their own deadline to submit an annual report. For example, if you received an award in the first round in February of 2024, the deadline for you to submit your annual report depends on your fiscal year end. That was something that was included in the bill, in the statute of the program. It's a legislative statutory requirement that you report your annual report 180 days after your fiscal year end. If you've already expended after the first reporting date, just submit a second one the following year and just say we have already expended the amount. So I would still encourage you to submit something because that's what's the requirement under the grant agreement. And then, okay, so our next, I hope that answers your question. The next question that we have is from Viola Mai. For Tier 2A eligibility, will CalIP only consider term loans under the definition of loan, or would convertible notes and other equity like investments also count? We had this question last year, and yes, they do count. So I would say yes. Okay, moving on to the next chat question from Allison Wong. After you receive an award, what are the reporting requirements or compliance requirements? So just to go over, once you receive your award, you sign, or right before you receive your award, you're notified and you're sent the grant agreement to be signed by your organization. And in the grant agreement, we do have all the requirements. That's also a statutory requirement that the organization has to report twice within the 2 years of the grant agreement, how much money is expended, and then just details of what the money was used for and financial statements. And the deadline to submit that is 180 days after your organization's fiscal year. So we do calculate that and we send you that information. That's who your contact person is on the application, because that's who we're reaching out to. If your contact person changed, you can also let us know and we'll update it on our end. I hope that answered your question. Next question from Asha Rao. If we are a national CDFI, is it correct to assume that the application should only include the California-based activity? Yes, this is a really good question, because yes, there are a lot of nationwide CDFIs that serve, throughout all or many states. We only need to see California. So like, for example, in your loan portfolio, we don't need to see the loans that are being made in other states, just the ones in California. Good question. And then again, Alice Wong had the question, will you send the deck information after the application workshop? Yes, we'll be emailing a copy of this presentation. And then once the recording is posted on our webpage, we'll also follow up and send that as well. Next question from Megan Hershiser. Apologies if I've messed that up. For national CDFIs, how do you identify principal office based in California? Is it related to the amount of lending or other program activity in California? This is a really good question. We do understand that some CDFIs that serve nationwide don't have a principal office, and that's okay as long as you meet the other requirements serving in California. We'll put that slide up really quick. But yeah, that's part of the minimum eligibility requirements. And in order to serve in California, you have to, and here's the slide, already be serving in one of the following ways. So those 3 check marks, if you don't have a principal office in California, then you wouldn't be eligible through there, but there's 3 options there. Before we go to the next question, going back to annual reporting, when after the grant agreement is signed and we have our analyst who's in charge of looking through the annual reporting, they'll send you an email with a template of the annual report as well as your specific organization's deadline. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that there is a template. You can also find it on our CalIP webpage. Next question from Anthony. We do about 400 loans a year, totaling about 9 million. For the loan portfolio portion, how much information should we realistically submit? Thank you for that. We won't be upset if you send us more information if it's for California. We just, if it's all for California, we'd love to see it, even if it exceeds the eligibility requirements, but it should be specific to the loans made in California. So we'd appreciate that. If it's too vast, like the 400, you could just reach out to us if you feel like it's too big of a file or something. But yeah, or you could also just submit whatever is up to the eligibility requirement. So I hope that makes sense. And if not, you can just reach out to us for more specifics for that one. And then from Kat Donovan, for clarification, if we receive grant dollars in 2025 and our fiscal year ends on December 31st, 2025, our reporting for 2025 will begin in 2026. So this is kind of, a question that we've received a lot. Unfortunately, because of the way that it's written in the legislation, the requirement, it's 180 days after your fiscal year end. Even if that lands like within a month of you receiving the award, that's okay. Even if you haven't expended any amount by that date, so say if the your annual report is due, say in March, a month after, you still need to submit it, and it's fine if you haven't expended the amount. We just need an update. And the annual report template is very straightforward, and it's very easy to fill out. You can just include that in the question section. You're not penalized. I think a lot of applicants' organizations think that they're being penalized if they haven't used or expended any awards within like a month or two because of just how their deadline ends. But that's okay. You just have to identify it. For the program itself, you are obligated to report under the grant agreement, but whatever award money is used after 2 years is up to the organization. But within the 2 years, you have to report. And then the next question from Shanti, if we provide a proposed use of funds in the application, is this flexible and can we change this amongst eligible categories during the course of the award period? So this is a good question. We had an applicant in the last award cycle who was very specific in, including amounts in what their proposed uses for the award amounts were. If you have and we're not holding you to the exact amounts, but we are holding organizations accountable for the goals that they have for the eligible uses. It still has to be, even if it changes, it has to meet the mission of what the organization identifies in question 3 of the application of what their proposed use is. If it's very specific or very different, I wouldn't be able to identify that right now, but you would need to reach out to the CalIP inbox and then let us know what your case is, because whatever is put in question 3 of the application, what your question that you're answering of what the organization's proposed uses are, is what's included in the grant agreement when your organization is signing and certifying that they're going to meet all of the requirements. So it's very important that the proposed uses are within the mission of the requirements or what can be used set by the statute. Okay, next question from Nathan. Under use of funds, if we choose to apply the funds to loan loss reserve, how would the program verify 50% expended or committed in our financial reporting? So when you're applying, you're certifying that that information is correct. You're not necessarily proving that you're not including that in the financial statements, but we're verifying that in your annual reports. So not necessarily when you are applying when in the application, you're just identifying the amount and the what's been expended from the total amount, and then you're certifying that that's true and correct. The authorized signer is the one who is signing that. It's included in the certification. And if we have any questions, we'll reach out to you. Okay, and then we'll just wait a couple of more minutes to see if anybody has any more questions. Please, use the hand raised option or drop it in the chat, and we'll stay on for a couple more minutes.
Right. Seems like there are no more questions. So we just want to say thank you for attending. And thank you all very much. Hope we can answer your questions today. And if you have more questions, once again, please reach out to us at calip@treasurer.ca.gov. Thank you all very much for attending. Have a great day. Good luck in your applications and talk to you soon. Bye.